A 7-year-old boy stands barefoot on a scorching rural highway, tears streaming down his dirt-stained face. His mother hasn't moved in hours. Desperate, he does the unthinkable. He runs toward a group of leather-clad bikers rolling through town, the kind of men his mama always warned him to avoid. "Please," he sobs, tugging at a massive biker's vest, "my mama won't wake up." What happened next shocked an entire community and exposed a truth about judgment, fear, and the invisible lines we draw between us. This is a story about a child's desperate cry for help, the strangers who answered, and the discovery that left hardened bikers weeping on a stranger's porch.
7-year-old Marcus Thompson lived in a faded yellow house at the end of Oakwood Lane in rural Georgia, the kind of neighborhood where houses stood far apart and help wasn't just around the corner. The paint peeled like old sunburned skin, and the front steps sagged under their own weight, but to Marcus, it was home. It was where his mama sang while cooking breakfast on good days, where she tucked him in tight and promised tomorrow would be better. Lately, there hadn't been many good days. Marcus's mama, Shanice, was 28 but looked older. Life had carved lines into her face that didn't belong there yet. The weight of raising a child alone, of working double shifts at the truck stop diner, of choosing between electricity and groceries. She never complained, not out loud, but Marcus noticed. He noticed how she winced when she thought he wasn't looking, how she'd stare at pill bottles on the kitchen counter with trembling hands, and some mornings she moved like her bones were made of glass. "Baby, Mama's just tired," she'd say, forcing a smile that never quite reached her eyes. "Go play outside for a bit, okay?" That Friday morning in late July started like most others. The Georgia's sun climbed angry and early, turning the small house into an oven by 9 a.m. Marcus woke to find his mama already dressed for her shift, scrambling eggs at the stove. She moved slowly, deliberately, one hand pressed against the small of her back. "Morning, baby," she said softly. Her voice sounded thin, stretched. "Eat up quick. Mama's got to leave early today." Marcus sat at the wobbly kitchen table and watched her. Something felt wrong. Her hand shook as she set down his plate. A thin film of sweat covered her forehead despite the rattling fan in the corner. "Mama, you okay?" "I'm fine, Marcus. Just hot is all." But when she turned away, Marcus saw her grip the counter edge, knuckles white. She left for work at 10:15, kissing his forehead and reminding him to lock the door, to not open it to strangers, to eat the sandwich she'd left in the fridge for lunch. "I'll be home by 4, baby. Be good." Marcus watched from the window as her old Toyota sputtered down the dirt road, trailing dust and black smoke. That was the last time he saw his mama standing on her own 2 feet. 4 o'clock came and went, then 5, then 6. Marcus ate his sandwich. He watched cartoons. He waited. When headlights finally swept across the living room wall at 8:30 p.m., Marcus ran to the window. It was Mama's car, but it moved strange, jerking, drifting, barely crawling up the driveway. It stopped crooked, half on the grass. The driver's door opened. Shanice fell out more than stepped out, catching herself on her hands and knees in the dirt. Marcus's heart hammered against his ribs. He threw open the front door. "Mama!" She looked up at him, her face twisted in pain, tears cutting tracks through the dust on her cheeks. "Baby, Mama needs to rest, just for a little bit." Her eyes fluttered closed. "Mama?" Marcus squeezed her hand. It was clammy and cold despite the suffocating heat. "Mama, wake up!" She didn't respond. "Mama!" Panic crept into his voice. He shook her shoulder gently, then harder. Her chest rose and fell in shallow, labored breaths, but her eyes stayed closed, her face slack. Marcus didn't have a phone. Mama's cell had been shut off 2 months ago when she couldn't pay the bill. Their landline was disconnected a week later. He was 7 years old, alone, and his mama wouldn't wake up. As darkness swallowed the house and the temperature finally began to drop, Marcus did the only thing he could think to do. He stayed beside her, holding her cold hand, and whispered promises that everything would be okay. But deep down, even at 7, he knew this time might be different.
By sunrise, nothing had changed. Shanice lay motionless on the couch, her breathing so shallow Marcus had to put his ear to her chest just to hear it. He hadn't slept. Every time he closed his eyes, terror jerked him awake. What if she stopped breathing? What if she was already? No, he couldn't think like that. Saturday morning light filtered through the thin curtains, exposing the desperation of their situation in harsh detail. The house was silent, except for the labored whisper of his mama's breath. Marcus tried everything he could think of. He brought her water, tried to get her to drink. It dribbled down her chin. He found her pill bottles in the bathroom, empty, all of them. He searched for any phone, any neighbor close enough to run to, but the nearest house was old Mr. Patterson's place, nearly a quarter mile through thick woods, and Mr. Patterson had made it clear last summer that he didn't take kindly to certain folks cutting through his property. Marcus remembered the way Mr. Patterson had looked at him and his mama that day, like they were something dirty that had wandered onto his land by mistake. By noon, Marcus knew he had to leave. He had to get help, even if it meant leaving Mama alone. He pulled on his sneakers, but they'd gotten too small months ago and split at the seams last week. His bare feet would have to do. He'd walked barefoot before. Marcus kissed his mama's hot forehead, whispered, "I'll be right back," and stepped out into the blistering Georgia heat. The main road was 2 miles away. Marcus ran. Dust kicked up behind him, coating his legs, getting in his mouth. The sun beat down mercilessly on his head and shoulders. Rocks bit into his feet, but he didn't slow down. Mama needed help. That was all that mattered. When he finally reached Highway 27, gasping and dizzy from heat and fear, Marcus stood at the roadside and tried to flag down cars. Surely someone would stop. Surely someone would help a child clearly in distress. An old pickup truck approached. Marcus waved both arms frantically. The truck slowed, then accelerated past him without stopping. Inside, Marcus caught a glimpse of a white man's face, eyes forward, jaw set, deliberately looking away. A minivan, a family with kids in the back. Marcus jumped into the road, waving, "Please help, my mama!" The driver, a white woman with sunglasses, pulled her children back from the window and swerved around him. She never even slowed down. A sedan, a couple of teenagers. Marcus ran alongside it for several yards, tears streaming, bare feet bleeding now. "Please, someone help!" They laughed. He heard it through the closed window. One pointed at his bare feet. They sped away. Car after car, truck after truck. Some pretended not to see him. Others stared right at him and kept going. One man rolled down his window just to shout, "Get off the road, boy! You trying to get yourself killed?" Marcus stood in the middle of that highway, 7 years old and barefoot and covered in dust and tears, and felt invisible. He felt like he didn't matter, like his mama didn't matter. Then he heard them. The low rumble started as a distant thunder, growing louder, shaking the ground beneath his bleeding feet. Marcus turned toward the sound and saw them cresting the hill. Motorcycles, at least a dozen, riding in formation. Leather and chrome and American flags whipping in the wind. Bikers. Mama's voice echoed in his head. "Marcus, you stay away from those motorcycle people, you hear me? They're dangerous." But Mama was dying, and no one else would stop. Marcus planted himself in the middle of the highway, arms spread wide. The lead bike's engine roared as it approached. For a moment, Marcus thought they'd just ride around him like everyone else. But the front bike slowed, then stopped. The rider, A massive white man with a thick gray beard, tattoos crawling up his neck, and patches covering his leather vest, pulled off his helmet and stared down at Marcus. The rest of the bikes pulled up behind him, engines idling, filling the air with noise and exhaust. Marcus counted at least 15 bikers, all right, all big, all covered in leather and metal and ink. They looked exactly like the kind of men Mama had warned him about. The lead biker swung his leg off his bike and stood, towering over Marcus like a mountain. His face was weathered and hard, his eyes hidden behind reflective sunglasses. He was easily twice the size of any man Marcus had ever seen. "Kid," the biker's voice rumbled like his engine, "you got a death wish standing in the middle of the highway?" Marcus' lip trembled. His voice came out small and broken. "Please, sir, my mama won't wake up. I need help. Please." The biker tilted his head. "Where's your mama, kid?" "At home. She won't wake up. I tried everything. Nobody will stop. Please, I need help." The words tumbled out in desperate gasps. "Please, I walked so far. My feet hurt. Mama won't wake up. Please help." The biker's jaw tightened. He looked back at his crew again, and this time Marcus saw heads nodding. When he turned back to Marcus, something in his expression had shifted. "What's your name, kid?" "Marcus." "Marcus, I'm Dale. This here's my crew." He gestured to the other bikers. "We're gonna help you, okay? But you gotta tell me true. Is your mama in danger? Is someone hurting her?" "No, sir. She won't wake up. She's been sleeping since last night. Please, we have to go now." Dale stood up, his leather creaking. "All right, Marcus, you're going to ride with me. Jimmy, you call 911 and have them send an ambulance to—" He looked down at Marcus. "What's the address?" Marcus told him, and Jimmy, the scarred biker, pulled out a cell phone. But as Dale reached down to lift Marcus onto his bike, a voice cut through the air, sharp, hostile. "Hold up, Dale." A stocky biker with a bald head and a gray goatee stepped forward, his face twisted in a sneer. "We really doing this?" Dale turned slowly. "Doing what, Kenny?" "Come on, man." He gestured at Marcus dismissively. "This some kind of setup? Kid walks out of nowhere with a sob story, gets us to a house in the middle of nowhere? How stupid you think we are?" "That's a child, Kenny," another biker said quietly, a woman with short-cropped hair and kind eyes. "That's a trick," Kenny shot back. "Oldest one in the book. We go to that house, who knows what's waiting? Could be anything, could be anybody." The air changed. Other bikers shifted uncomfortably. Marcus felt himself shrinking, becoming small, becoming nothing. Dale's voice went cold. "You saying we leave a kid standing barefoot on a highway because you're scared?" "I'm saying we use our heads, Kenny. Look at him. Look at where he's from. You know that neighborhood. You know what kind of—" "Finish that sentence, Kenny." Dale's voice interrupted. "Go ahead, Kenny. Finish it." Kenny's mouth shut, but his eyes stayed hard, judgmental. He looked Marcus up and down with open contempt. Marcus understood then. He'd seen that look before. In Mr. Patterson's eyes, in the faces of drivers who'd passed him by, in teachers at school who called on everyone but him, in store clerks who followed him and Mama around like they were thieves. It was the look that said, "You don't belong, you don't matter, I don't trust you because of what you are." "My mama's dying," Marcus whispered. "Please, I'm not lying. I'm not. Please believe me."
The standoff on that highway lasted mere seconds, but felt like hours. Kenny stood firm, arms crossed, several bikers nodding in silent agreement behind him. Marcus trembled, caught between hope and despair, watching his last chance at saving his mama slip away because of who he was, because of what he looked like. Then Dale did something that changed everything. He knelt down again, ignoring Kenny completely, and looked Marcus directly in the eyes. "Son, I believe you. You hear me? I believe you." "Dale," Kenny started. "Shut your mouth, Kenny." Dale didn't even glance back. He kept his eyes locked on Marcus. "You ever been on a motorcycle, Marcus?" Marcus shook his head. "Well, today's your lucky day."
Dale stood and lifted Marcus up like he weighed nothing, settling him on the seat of his massive Harley-Davidson. "Hold on tight to me, okay? We're gonna get to your mama fast." "Dale, you can't be serious!" Kenny stepped forward. Dale whirled on him, and suddenly, the gentle giant who'd been kind to Marcus transformed into something frightening. "Kenny, I'm gonna say this once. That boy's mama is dying. Whether you're too scared or too prejudiced to see a child who needs help, that's on you and your conscience. But I'm going. Anyone who's got a problem with that can wait here." He mounted the bike in front of Marcus. "Anyone else coming?" The female biker moved first, mounting her bike without a word. Then Jimmy. Then 3 more. Then another. Within seconds, more than half the crew had started their engines. Kenny stood alone with 2 others, face red, jaw clenched. "This is a mistake." "Then make it without us," the female biker called out. "Some of us still remember what it means to help somebody." Dale wrapped Marcus's small arms around his waist. "Hold on tight to me, okay? We're gonna get to your mama fast." The engine roared to life beneath them, and they exploded down the highway. Marcus had never moved so fast. Wind tore at his clothes and hair. The world blurred into streaks of green and brown. But Dale's broad back was solid and steady in front of him, and for the first time since Mama collapsed, Marcus felt like maybe, just maybe, everything would be okay. They reached Oakwood Lane in minutes that felt like seconds. The yellow house came into view, sad and sagging in the brutal sunlight. Dale pulled into the dirt driveway, the other bikes roaring up behind him, filling the quiet neighborhood with noise. "Which way?" Dale asked as Marcus scrambled off the bike. "Here, inside." Marcus ran to the door, Dale and the others right behind him. The house was like an oven. The moment they stepped inside, the heat hit them like a physical wall. And there, on the couch, exactly as Marcus had left her, was Shanice. Dale reached her in 3 long strides. He pressed 2 thick fingers against her neck, checking for a pulse. His face went grave. "She's alive, but barely. Pulse is weak. She's burning up." He looked at Jimmy. "Where's that ambulance?" 10 minutes out." "She might not have 10 minutes. Dale looked around, taking in the scene. The empty pill bottles on the coffee table, the glass of water Marcus had tried to give her, the worn furniture and peeling walls. Understanding washed over his weathered face. The female biker, who'd introduced herself as Sarah, knelt beside the couch. "Looks like sepsis, maybe infection. See the red streaks on her arm?" She pointed to angry red lines running up Shanice's left arm. "She needs antibiotics, fluids, and she needed them yesterday." "Marcus," Dale's voice was gentle again. "Does your mama have a phone? Anyone we can call?" Marcus shook his head, tears flowing freely now. "It got turned off. We can't." He didn't finish. He didn't need to. Every adult in that room understood immediately. Sarah's face crumpled with compassion. Jimmy looked away, jaw tight. Dale closed his eyes for a moment, and when he opened them, they were wet. "How long has she been like this, son?" "Since last night. I tried to wake her up. I tried so hard. Nobody would stop. Cars kept passing me. Nobody cared." The words came between sobs now. "They just kept driving. They looked at me and kept driving." Dale pulled Marcus into a hug that smelled like leather and gasoline and something Marcus couldn't name. Safety, maybe. "We care, kid. We care." Sirens wailed in the distance, growing louder. "I'm sorry," Marcus sobbed into Dale's vest. "I'm sorry she's sick. I'm sorry I made you come here. I'm sorry." Marcus stopped. Dale pulled back, gripping Marcus's shoulders firmly but gently. "You don't apologize for needing help. You don't apologize for being scared, and you sure as hell don't apologize for loving your mama enough to save her life. You hear me?" Ambulance screamed into the driveway. Paramedics rushed through the door. The small house filled with people and equipment and urgent voices. Shanice was lifted onto a stretcher, IV lines already being inserted, oxygen mask covering her face. As they wheeled her out, her eyes flickered open for just a moment. She saw Marcus. She saw the bikers surrounding him, protecting him.
She saw the tattoos and leather and tried to speak, confusion and fear crossing her face. "Mama!" Marcus ran to her side. "Mama, they helped me. They're good people. They saved you." Shanice's eyes met Dale's across the stretcher. A tear rolled down her cheek. She couldn't speak, but Dale understood. He nodded once. "We got him, ma'am. Your boy's safe. He's a hero." They loaded Shanice into the ambulance. Marcus started to follow, but a paramedic stopped him. "Sorry, son, only family." "He rides with us," Dale interrupted firmly. "We'll follow the ambulance. Marcus, you're not alone, understand?" Marcus nodded, unable to speak past the lump in his throat. As the ambulance pulled away, sirens wailing, Kenny's motorcycle rumbled up the driveway. He stopped, taking in the scene, the ambulance, the emergency vehicles, the small barefoot boy who'd been telling the truth all along. Dale caught his eye, said nothing, didn't need to. Kenny looked away, shame written on his face. "I've got some money," he called out hesitantly, "towards the hospital. I can help with the medical bills." Dale just nodded. "You do that, Kenny. She might just need it." And then, talking to Marcus, he yelled over the roar of the bikes, "Let's go home! Quick stop for ice cream, then to the hospital." Marcus laughed for the first time in what felt like forever. He clung to Dale as they roared down the road, the other bikes following, and knew, whether his mama survived or not, he wasn't alone. He had a family. A big family. With very, very loud motorcycles.
Shanice spent 4 days in intensive care. The diagnosis was sepsis from an infected cut on her arm, a small injury from work that she'd ignored because she couldn't afford to take time off, couldn't afford the doctor visit, couldn't afford the antibiotics that would have stopped the infection before it nearly killed her. The hospital bills piled up, monstrous and impossible, but Shanice was alive. That was all that mattered to Marcus. What happened next, though, neither of them expected. Dale and his crew didn't just disappear after dropping Marcus at the hospital. They stayed. They visited. They brought food for Marcus while he sat in the waiting room, refusing to leave until he could see his mama. Sarah bought him new shoes. Jimmy brought coloring books and puzzles to keep him occupied. And then they did something else. Dale's motorcycle club, the Iron Brotherhood, had a charity fund for emergencies. But when they looked at Shanice's bills, at the reality of what this single mother faced, they knew their small fund wouldn't be enough. So they made phone calls. Within 2 days, the story spread. A desperate boy, a dying mother, bikers who stopped when everyone else drove by. Local news picked it up, then regional, then national. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. The dangerous bikers that people feared had done what an entire community of respectable people had refused to do. They'd stopped. The donation started small but grew rapidly, thousands of dollars, then tens of thousands. People from across the country sent money, supplies, support. The hospital, facing public scrutiny for potentially sending Shanice home to collections agencies, quietly forgave a portion of her bill. When Shanice was finally released, weak but recovering, she walked out of that hospital to find Dale waiting with the entire Iron Brotherhood behind him. They'd not only covered her medical bills, they'd paid 3 months of her rent, fixed her car, stocked her kitchen, and set up a fund for Marcus's future education. Shanice wept. Marcus wept. Several of the bikers, these tough, leather-clad men who'd seen hard roads and harder times, wept too. "Why?" Shanice asked Dale through her tears. "Why would you do all this for us? You don't even know us." Dale looked down at Marcus, then back at Shanice. "Because your boy had the courage to ask for help when he needed it. Because he didn't let fear or prejudice stop him from trying to save you. And because," he paused, his voice rough with emotion, "because too many people drove past him like he didn't matter, like you didn't matter. And that ain't right. That ain't ever been right." He pulled an envelope from his vest pocket. "This is from Kenny, the guy who didn't want to help." Inside was a check and a note. The note simply said, "I was wrong. I'm sorry. K." People carry a lot of fear. Fear of what's different. Fear of what they don't understand. Fear that's been taught and passed down and never questioned. But that boy,
He put his hand on Marcus's shoulder. That was braver than all of us. He looked past what he'd been taught to fear and asked for help anyway. The story didn't end there. It rippled outward in ways no one anticipated. The Iron Brotherhood started a program partnering with underserved communities, breaking down barriers between groups that had long eyed each other with suspicion. Churches that had never spoken to each other began working together. People who'd lived in the same town for decades but moved in completely separate circles finally started conversations. Marcus and his mama moved to a better house with the help of community donations. Shanice got proper medical care, found a better job, and for the first time in years didn't have to choose between medicine and meals. But perhaps the most powerful change was the quietest one. A year later, Marcus stood in front of his second-grade class for show and tell. He held up a photograph, himself, tiny and barefoot, surrounded by the Iron Brotherhood, all of them smiling. "These are my friends," Marcus told his classmates. "They saved my mama's life. My mama used to tell me to be afraid of people who look different, but these people who look scary, they were the only ones who stopped when I needed help." He looked around at the diverse faces of his classmates, black kids, white kids, Latino kids, Asian kids, all sitting together. "My mama says she was wrong. She says we can't know who's good and who's bad just by looking at them. We have to give people a chance, because sometimes the person who looks the scariest is the one with the biggest heart." The teacher wiped her eyes. Several students clapped. That photograph still hangs in Marcus's room today, but it also hangs in the clubhouse of the Iron Brotherhood, a reminder of why they ride, why they serve, and why prejudice, in any form, from any direction, has no place on the open road. Shanice tells anyone who will listen, "My son taught me something that day. He taught a whole community something. When we judge people based on how they look, when we let fear decide who deserves our help, we don't just fail them, we fail ourselves. We fail our humanity." Dale puts it simpler. That boy needed help. Nothing else mattered. Not the color of his skin, not the neighborhood he lived in, not what anyone thought. Just a kid who needed help. Shouldn't have been complicated, but it was. And that's what we gotta change.